Virginia's State Crime Lab is helping police connect the abduction of University of Virginia student Hannah Graham to several other crimes.
Detectives describe a forensic link across the cases that applies to a range of evidence, all examined in one lab in Richmond. NBC 29's Matt Talhelm takes us on an all-access tour to show us the science behind solving crimes.
Yeah, good evening, Casey and Steve. The day we were there, the lab actually received the cheek swabs from the suspect in Hannah Graham's abduction, Jesse Matthew. 3 days later, the lab sent out this report back to police, which has the DNA match to evidence collected beneath the fingernails of a rape victim in 2005. Sounds like a scene right out of CSI, but the lab's work is far from a TV drama.
Inside this unremarkable government building in Richmond,
we serve, the citizens of the Commonwealth.
Under the magnified eye of a microscope and through the barrel of a gun, the Department of Forensic Sciences evidence examiners are solving Virginia's crimes.
We're the scientists. The outcome is purely scientific.
Jeff Bann leads the lab's team of 95 scientists and support staff.
It takes a lot longer to do the analysis than you see on shows like CSI.
Their evidence analysis can convict or acquit a suspect without knowing much about the crime.
We don't get into the details. We don't get a police report. We don't need to know that.
Bann can't talk about specific cases, but this lab processed evidence collected in the abduction and death of University of Virginia student Hannah Graham. Its scientists linked suspect Jesse Matthews' DNA to the 2009 Morgan Harrington murder. This lab gave a 2005 Fairfax rape suspect sketch a name, Jesse Matthew.
To try to tie the whole picture together of what might have happened in a criminal event.
Those connections are made in the Forensic Biology Division, better known as the DNA Lab. Lisa Schiermeyer Wood supervises the lab's 10 examiners.
The evidence comes up to our floor, and at that point, an examiner is assigned to each and every case.
They scour evidence collected by police at the scene of a crime, searching for blood and bodily fluids.
They are cut then from the evidence, placed in small tubes, and that's when the DNA process begins.
This robot extracts the DNA to create a profile. A computer searches the 450,000 profiles in Virginia's convicted felon DNA databank. It started in 1989. Databank hits have solved nearly 10,000 crimes, from burglary to murder.
We wait for just a matter of seconds to minutes, and we get a screen back that tells us whether or not there are any hits to any individuals and whether or not there are any hits to any other cases, whether those other cases are solved or unsolved.
Just down the hall, 2,400 hits have pointed the finger at suspects in crimes.
You'd be surprised where prints can be lifted from, something as small as a dime.
Virginia's automated fingerprint identification system searches for possible suspects. A forensic scientist makes the final match for police, comparing prints by eye.
You may have had an unknown print. You now have a candidate to look at to determine if, in fact, it is the same.
The firearms lab uses a comparison microscope to blow up markings on bullets collected from shootings.
We also at times can provide an investigative lead based on our examination of the bullets and cartridge cases.
That's done here. The lab uses its library of nearly 3,000 guns to fire away. Then the bullets are fished out from the tank for comparison.
What we're trying to do is to determine if all the items were fired in the same firearm, or maybe to determine if multiple firearms were involved in the shooting.
The technique is a bit simpler. Inside the trace evidence lab,
we use Post-it notes, which has a low-tack adhesive.
Josh Kruger's scientists collect evidence discovered by police and zoom down to identify hairs and fibers by their basic building blocks.
We will look at things like color, we'll look at the diameter, we'll look at the cross-sectional shape of the fiber.
The central lab will handle nearly 2/3 of the 60,000 criminal cases processed statewide each year. The lab reports results back to police only after each case is reviewed by at least one other examiner.
Juries, law enforcement, attorneys, prosecutors, and defense attorneys can trust what they're getting from the laboratory.
Bann testifies to the pride his criminal scientists have in their part of Virginia's justice system.
Our results can either convict somebody or, you know, they can eliminate somebody. So it's very important that, you know, the results be accurate.
The lab stays open weekends, and examiners work overtime to process evidence from crimes where there is an immediate threat to public safety, like in those first days after Hannah Graham's disappearance here in Charlottesville. But for most cases, testing takes time. Take a look at the numbers. These are the lab's average case turnaround times through the end of October. Drug cases, 67 days. Firearms, 48 days. Forensic biology, the DNA, that can take as long as 80 days. Latent prints, 57 days. Questioned documents, 28 days. Toxicology can take 45, and that trace evidence we talked about can take up to 66 days. Those are just through the end of October. And of course, guys, that can depend on how many crimes were committed in a month, where this evidence is coming in from, how far away, and if some of those evidence examiners have to go to testify in court, that can take them out of commission for a couple of weeks.
And where lots of people want answers right away, we talk about it's not for them, it's not getting it done, it's getting it done right.
That's exactly right. You know, we've heard in all those press conferences at the very beginning, especially with Hannah Graham's disappearance, where police were saying, we are waiting for the evidence to come back, we are waiting, we're waiting. Well, at the State Crime Lab, they did work overtime to solve this DNA evidence and the evidence collected in Hannah Graham's case, because there was that imminent public threat that they felt. But they wanted to make sure that that evidence and what is reported back to police is accurate, because as they say, this evidence, this science can convict or acquit someone and can take the rest of their life from them.
Yeah. So neat to get an inside look like that too. That's not very common.
It really is. And in fact, they were kind of joking with us that they haven't had a TV crew to that lab in a very long time. They don't let you into some sections. The DNA evidence section, we actually had to get the video through a window that you could see there, because we're not allowed inside there because they are dealing with such important evidence from DNA samples from around the state and from different crimes. So they don't get a lot of visitors. They want to share what they do, though, and share the science behind it to prove this isn't CSI or those criminal shows.
All right, well, thanks for taking us.
Yes.
Thank you.